Hey, before we jump into today's story, be sure you never miss another episode of 10-Minute Murder. To do that, all you have to do is follow the podcast on whatever app you're listening right now. It might say subscribe, follow, or collect, something like that. It depends on where you're listening. But hit that button and be a part of everything we're doing here.
10-Minute Murder contains depictions of actual crimes. What you are about to hear is real and violent in nature. Discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to the brief and bingeable true crime podcast, 10-Minute Murder. I'm Joe, the host, and thank you for being here. If I screw up today, just know that I'm working with only one fully functioning eye. I suffered a mask-related casualty earlier today. I was at work, and I moved my mask to the side to take a sip of my delicious hot caramel macchiato, and I tried to quickly replace my mask as somebody was coming into the room, and I poked myself directly in the eyeball. Like so deep, I think I scraped my brain. And I might be exaggerating a little bit, but just barely. If I had to relate the pain to something else so that you know what level I'm talking about, if you're a lady and you've had a baby, JK, I'm not even going to finish that. I'm going to end up as a story on my own podcast. Speaking of this podcast, the story today is about the murder of one of the most famous, low-key actor comedians there's ever been. He was often described as the regular guy. He played countless roles and did voices for many characters that you've known and loved. In the early morning hours of May 28, 1998, he was shot and killed in his sleep by his wife. This is the murder of Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman was a loved Canadian-American actor, comedian, and screenwriter. Born in Ontario, Canada, and moved to the States with his family when he was 10, and he was obviously the class clown. He attended California State University, Northridge, getting a degree in graphic arts. Early in his career, he designed record album covers, using that graphic arts degree. In 1975, he joined the Groundlings, which is an improv and sketch comedy school based in LA. Many extremely famous people have trained at Groundlings and have gone on to work for Saturday Night Live. Phil's first TV credit came in the late 70s, an appearance on The Dating Game. He won. While at Groundlings, he met a guy named Paul Reubens. He helped Paul develop and hone a character you know as Pee Wee Herman. Hartman went on to co-write Pee Wee's Big Adventure and made appearances himself on the show as Captain Carl. In 1986, Phil Hartman joined the cast of Saturday Night Live. He was a staple on the show for 8 seasons. Cast and crew gave him the nickname Glue for his ability to hold the show together and keep everyone in sync. Usually, actors are forced out at SNL, either subtly or very publicly. Hartman left on his own in 1995. He wanted to try new things. He voiced multiple characters on The Simpsons, had roles in the movies Small Soldiers, Sergeant Bilko, House Guest, and one of the greatest Christmas movies ever, Jingle All the Way. Don't at me. I said one of. During all the success and notoriety in his career, Phil Hartman was equally as good at ruining marriages. He had been married and divorced twice. Off-screen, Phil kept to himself quite a bit and was described as a recluse and in a little world of his own. In November 1987, Hartman's third marriage was to a model and aspiring actress, Bryn Omdahl. Bryn was not her real name, though. She thought it would be flashier on the credits of a movie than Vicky Joe, so she changed it. Phil and Bryn met on a blind date the previous year and fell for each other. They had 2 children together, and having the kids helped Phil come out of his personal shell a little bit. He spent more time at home with his family than with previous marriages. But the marriage still had difficulties. Bryn desperately wanted to make it as a Hollywood actress. She was jealous of Phil's success. She couldn't find any roles without his help, and it wasn't to the level that either of them wanted a divorce, but she was verbally and sometimes physically abusive with Hartman. She became more and more reliant on the alcohol and narcotics she was abusing. Rehab wasn't working for her after going for several different stays. Phil had to take the kids out of the home to stay with friends and family on multiple occasions because of her drug and alcohol-fueled rages. He considered retiring in order to be home all the time to help with what she was going through. Bryn was so jealous of a relationship that Phil had with an SNL associate, Jan Hooks, that she would joke about it in public, but in private, wrote several threatening letters to Jan, warning her to stay away from Phil. She never sent those letters, though. She didn't have the chance. On May 27, 1998, with writer and producer Christine Zander, Bryn went to a nice Italian restaurant in Encino, the town they lived in. Christine said that Bryn appeared to be in a good frame of mind. When she got home, though, a heated argument with Phil Hartman erupted. Tired of arguing, he went to bed and fell asleep. Sometime before 3 a.m., Bryn entered the bedroom carrying a .38 caliber handgun. She shot Phil Hartman while he slept, once in the chest, once in the throat, and once between his eyes. At 49 years old, he was dead. Bryn got into her car and drove to a friend's house, Ron Douglas. She confessed to Ron about killing her husband, but he didn't believe her. They drove back to the house in separate cars. On the drive back, she picked up her phone and called another friend, telling her what she had done. When Douglas walked into the bedroom and saw Hartman's body, he immediately called 911. He now knew that she was telling the truth. That call was made at 6:20 a.m., and the police arrived shortly after. While they escorted the kids out of the house, Bryn locked herself in the bedroom. Shortly after, they heard a gunshot. Bryn had taken her own life.
At 6:20 this morning, residents of this upscale Encino neighborhood called police to report gunshots coming from the Hartman's gated estate. Officers arrived to find a 9-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl by the front door, both obviously upset. As they were taking the children out of the house, officers heard a gunshot in the master bedroom. There they discovered comedian Phil Hartman dead. Authorities say it appears his wife Bryn shot him, then turned the gun on herself.
Mr. Hartman had been dead for a while. He did not die at the same time that Mrs. Hartman apparently killed herself.
Distraught neighbors and friends of the couple say they had marital problems. One woman said she had feared that this would happen.
We don't have any information concerning that topic at this time. We're continuing. Robbery Homicide will conduct a very thorough investigation. They will talk to the neighbors. They will talk to all witnesses and try and find that out.
Hartman made his living making people laugh. He got his first big break on Saturday Night Live. For 8 years, he took on characters like President Clinton.
And the fact is that one person and one person only bears the full responsibility for this affair. My wife, Hillary Rodham.
Hartman was currently starring on the NBC sitcom News Radio. He played a Ted Baxter-ish anchorman. Police are not confirming it, but friends say it was the Hartman's children taken from the house. They are now in protective custody and are being questioned by police. Carla Wohl, ABC News, Encino.
A friend of Bryn's later said that she was troubled and often had trouble controlling her anger. She got attention by losing her temper in front of people. Before killing her husband, Bryn had been taking the antidepressant Zoloft. She had also been drinking and had cocaine in her system. A wrongful death lawsuit was filed in 1999 by her brother Gregory Omdahl against Pfizer, the drug's manufacturer, and against her child psychiatrist, which had provided the samples of Zoloft to Bryn. Hartman's friend and former SNL colleague, Jon Lovitz, accused Hartman's then News Radio co-star Andy Dick of reintroducing Bryn to cocaine, causing her to relapse and suffer a nervous breakdown. Dick claims to have known nothing of her condition, but fully admits giving her cocaine. Lovitz later said that he no longer blamed Dick for Hartman's murder, but in 2006, Lovitz claimed that Dick had approached him at a restaurant and said, "I put the Phil Hartman hex on you. You're the next one to die." Lovitz then had him ejected from the restaurant. The following year at the Laugh Factory Comedy Club in LA, Lovitz and Dick had another argument, with Lovitz slamming Dick's head into the bar. Bryn's sister Catherine Omdahl and brother-in-law Mike Wright raised the two Hartman children. Hartman's will stipulated that each child would inherit money over the next several years after turning 25. The total value of Hartman's estate was estimated at $1.23 million. In accordance with his wishes, his body was cremated and ashes scattered over Santa Catalina Island's Emerald Bay.
Phil Hartman was at the top of his game, starring on TV and in movies, when in 1998, at the age of 49, he was shot and killed by his wife, Bryn Hartman, who then killed herself.
After I heard Bryn had shot Phil and then heard Bryn had shot herself, I think everyone was in shock in the family. And I cannot imagine why she would do that.
Details of the couple's relationship from Greg Omdahl, Bryn Hartman's brother.
I would say Bryn confided in me quite a bit. I know she was upset with Phil on one, maybe two occasions where he would be doing a part The Simpsons or news radio. He had mentioned to Bryn that, maybe I can get you a part. And when he'd come home, she'd say, well, did you talk to him about, getting me a part? And he'd say, oh, I forgot. And she'd be upset about that.
And an inside look at the Hartman family before tragedy struck in home videos.
Hello.
By all external appearances, they look like a very, very happy couple and family, but there are cracks in the armor.
What makes me the happiest? Well, without question, it's being a father.
But the marriage was troubled, the couple fighting often over Phil's busy work schedule and Bryn's substance abuse issues, until the early morning hours of May 28th, when Bryn returned home from a night of drinking and shot her husband. Just hours later, as police arrived on the scene, Bryn would take her own life as well.
So selfish. How she could take him away from everybody.
I've lost a sister that was such a wonderful person and a brother-in-law who was wonderful, and it was very hard. It was like getting punched in the gut because I knew my sister would never murder anyone.
That's today's 10-Minute Murder, the brief and bingeable true crime podcast. Thanks for listening today, and if today was the first time for you to listen, welcome. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I hope you'll follow the podcast and continue to listen. BTW, on the 10-Minute Murder Facebook page, I posted an article about the West Memphis 3, which, if you're into true crime documentaries, Paradise Lost is like The Godfather or Citizen Kane. It's right there toward the top of the list of ones to watch. Anyway, I got into research mode after watching the Paradise Lost series and came across an article which I posted. It led me deeper into research to where now I don't even know if they're guilty or innocent. I used to think for sure that they were innocent, but now I won't go so far as to say they're guilty, but it doesn't look good when you really critique the actual evidence. It's not as cut and dry as the shows make you think. There's a definite slant. And one of the accused has confessed a half a dozen times to anyone that would listen. Anyway, I'm considering an episode on that story, but man, it's a lot to tackle. But in the meantime, go read that article I posted and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Have a good night.